Madam President, proceed. We are published. We are live.
Are you going to read the?
I can. I don't know.
Okay, because I don't have a copy of it.
Yeah, given the nature of the unique nature of the meetings that are being conducted, involve live streaming. As a result, if you have a comment, if you're watching remotely, you'll also notice in the video itself, the feed, there is an email address at the bottom of the video, publiccomments@townofdyer.com. Please submit your comments to that email address, and they will be read aloud here by the council during the meeting and responded to as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome all of you to the Dyer Town Council meeting of July 30th, 2020. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Nice to see that we have so many people in attendance. May we have a roll call, please?
Here.
Here.
Here. Here. Present.
Here. Next on the agenda, we have announcements, and we have the Police Appreciation Day, which we celebrated last week. We certainly want to thank all of our policemen for the great job that they've been doing, especially over the last couple of years, even this year more so. So thank you very much. We do appreciate you, and we hope that you have a good year in the future, better than 2020 maybe, huh? The town council reports from the town council. Steve, anything?
Yeah, but we're according to the agenda, were we going to approve the consent?
Yes, we will. First? Yeah. The consent agenda as presented includes nothing is on there.
Yeah, well, items, all items confirmed and approved.
There's nothing underneath.
No.
Right.
Right. There's
right.
Right.
We
Okay.
have to do it.
Okay. So yes, just wanted to say thank you to all of our officers. Great job. Always continue doing a good job. And in my travels throughout the great state of Illinois and the wonderful city of Chicago, I do brag about our police department and ask them if they ever need help, give you guys a call. Fire department's always doing a great job. I've seen them out. Same thing with Department of Public Works. I cannot express my gratitude for always taking care of the water leaks. We had some, and we had that precautionary water boil. Everyone understands how important our water is now. So when you turn it on, the expectation is always have good water, and we appreciate it. And thank you to the Clerk Treasurer's Office for doing a wonderful job. Last, I'd like to thank our Indiana State Rep, Chris Chung. I know he sent a letter to the council. I received it too, reminding us that we, under the CARES Act, there's still funding available for the town of Dyer. I hope we look into it and process any form we need to receive all the funding that's Dyer still has 518,000, is that, or is that 5?
Allocation.
Yeah.
That's our limit to what we can ask for reimbursement.
That's the limit?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you have to understand the number of things that won't be reimbursed. So
Right.
we've been keeping track of that since March.
Greatly appreciate that. And on behalf of the Dyer Town Council, I'd like to thank everyone for coming, especially those who have enough respect and to honor everybody and within these challenging times and wearing a mask. Keep your social distancing so we all stay healthy and safe. So again, thank you for coming to our meeting. That's it.
Eric?
I have no report.
Alan?
Nothing official, but I would like to, I guess, congratulate Assistant Chief Grady and Commander Bazant on training of our new officer Smith, because every time I see her, she's got a car pulled over. So tell her to keep up the good work.
I have nothing at this time.
Okay. I just wanted to mention that last night we had a meeting for the Plan Commission and the Town Council for the comprehensive plan. It was a really insightful, it was a great meeting. It was very informative. And certainly when we have the public forum, it's going to be really informational for all of our residents. And I think that everybody will will really appreciate all the work that's been done for our comprehensive plan. Clerk Treasurer?
Not too much to report. We have a new meeting among treasurers, Michael Rick, Island, and Metroid. Like that's amongst myself, Smith, Griffith, Mike Troxel, Dave Benson, Tom Point. We have monthly meeting going over budget. Where we're headed and so it lasts about an hour and really helps with all of us. We work closely together. It's been great the last couple of months.
Okay, thank you. Town Manager?
I have nothing other than what's here.
Boards and commissions. Frank?
Essentially, on the utility board level, we've been working on the projects that we discussed at the prior meeting, our phosphorus removal facility, the design of that, and bidding out and getting our projects going for line repairs, open cuts and slip lining. So those are continuing forward as before. That progress continues in positively at this time. Our biggest challenges right now and our focus is on the distribution system. And as was mentioned earlier, we've had a number of breaks along our supply main. And so we're working with resolutions, and we had been prior to that, but now obviously, there's all sorts of efforts going into trying to remedy those circumstances we have in the entire public water supply, including that supply line. So that's where a lot of our energy has been directed. And I think that's going to be covered in the study session in some detail. So I'll leave that to that forum. So.
Thank you. Department heads? Nothing. Nothing. Jeff? Okay, thank you. Road projects, Neil?
Yes, very briefly, we have the 2020-1 CCND is in process with NDOT. It has been slow, but it's been moving, and everything we submitted to them has been accepted. We're just waiting for the documents back and PO to allow Jeff to take care of that issue with the body of the fund. The North Cape project is proceeding and is on schedule, and the 2020 local and patching projects have been sent to Walton Kelly for their review and scheduling. And those were from the bids that were reviewed and last. That's all. Any questions?
No, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Next, we have ordinances and resolutions. We have ordinance number 2020-07, stop signs at Saturday evening in Great Lakes Drive. It's an ordinance amending certain sections of the Town Code Section 8 pertaining to stop signs. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Town of Dyer, Lake County, Indiana ordinance number 2020-07, an ordinance amending certain sections of Town Code Section and pertaining to stop signs.
Have a second?
On the first reading.
I second that motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call.
Aye.
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 I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and pass ordinance number 2020-07 on the second reading.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. We have a 5-0 vote. Next, we have resolution 2020-11. And it is a resolution of the Town of Dyer Town Council waiving late fees and penalties. Do I have a motion to approve resolution 2020-11?
Motion to approve resolution number 2020-11.
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion?
Do we know how many late fees we're waiving? Roughly, or?
I don't have that number, no.
It depends each month, Alan, it's different,
Okay,
but we were waiting at the beginning of the pandemic,
right.
so everybody got situated for those 2 months.
Okay.
The utility board did theirs the other night, and then you guys received it also.
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll get you a report. We'll go back and look, see if we can determine that.
We have a motion and a second for waiving late fees and penalties due to COVID-19. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Rob,
Aye.
Eric,
Aye.
Alan,
Aye.
Steve.
Aye.
Mary.
Aye. Next, we have old business. We have no new old business. In the new business, we have RAVE Mobile Safety Memorandum of Understanding between Town of Dyer and Lake County Board of Commissioners. And sometimes you will hear it referred to as the MOU. Would you like to explain something, Tom?
Well, this is the robocall system that Lake County has. And this is just an agreement between us and through the Board of Commissioners to have access to that. We used it recently for the advisory. So it's a new system they got. It's a good system because it allows you to grid off areas if you want to isolate your calls and go. So I would encourage you to adopt it. There's no real cost to us.
Do you have a motion to approve the MOU between the Town of Dyer and the Lake County Board of Commissioners?
Also motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
I do have one quick question about it. How some of our residents were talking that they didn't necessarily get a phone call. How do our residents make sure that their information is up to date?
Well, with our texting system, for instance, you have to join. It's an active act on your part. This system is the database, and I don't know if you may think you didn't get the report because if it hits an answering machine, it hangs up and some of those things. So if we know who those people are, we can search back, make sure they're included. So if you get those complaints, get the information from them, send it to us, and then we'll kind of backtrack it. That's usually the best way to do it because you're talking 7,000-8,000 calls that go out, so.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I believe there might be the ability in that system for them to actually reach out and register as well.
There may be.
So they can add them, make sure they're added to that list.
Yeah.
Is that the Smart 911?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Bob?
Aye.
Eric?
Aye.
Alan?
Aye.
Steve?
Aye.
Aaron?
Aye. Next, we have a mid-year budget review.
Well, we've been putting the budget through a couple of stress tests. The first one we had was whether or not what position we were going to be in at the end of the 6 months, if we were going to need temporary loans. And we went through that process and didn't need anything. So we were successful in passing the first stress test. This is just a mid-year review of the major operating budgets and where people are at. And it kind of just gives you a summary. We're on schedule. We have a couple of line items that were underfunded, but overall we're in pretty good shape. So I would say we've passed the second stress test as far as I'm concerned where we're going. So you can read this thing and see, I have made some comments and some of the things are for 2021 and that type of stuff. But if you had a chance to read and have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them, but there's no reason to go through it tonight as far as I'm concerned, unless you have questions.
Anybody have questions? I thought it was a really good report, very thorough. If I had any questions, then I would call you and let you know.
Yeah, I had a checklist. We met with all the departments, went through it, had things. Clerk's office was there. We went through everything, and these are the critical things that we need to keep a handle on. That's all.
Thank you. Citizen input. Any citizens that would like to say anything? Do we have anything online, Frank?
We've not received any emails at public comments at townofdyer.com at this time. No emails received.
Okay, all right, thank you. I will call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? Yes.
I don't know when it's the right time for a resident to speak,
Yes.
all right, because I didn't know.
May we have your name and your address?
What's that?
Your name and your address?
Okay, my name is Carlos Lara. I live on Osage
Okay.
Drive,
Mhm.
716.
Yes.
And I've been here off and on, but since February, I believe, that was the last time that this was an open office for
Yes.
agenda. But the fact is that this is my 15th year as a resident there. And the last time I spoke here, I said I was having a lot of new neighbors. A lot of them passed away. I have one to my right, who's the last of that block between James and Laurel. Now, all the new residents that are there, I'm very happy to see them because they have kids. They go up and down the street. They use our park across the street at Cottonwood. I appreciate the Cottonwood new sign that they put up a couple of years ago. Our park needs to be a little bit upgraded because I see other areas that got better facility as far as swing slides and all. But that same park keeps over flooding. I know it's a water field. I mean, when it rains there and it pours onto the street. Myself and my new neighbor that came in today, we helped the elderly that's left there because the water field and the sewers can't handle the volume of when it rains and it pours there. So we're out there sweeping, cleaning the sewers to make sure the leaves don't clog it up. But the reason I'm here is to hear the same story, hopefully that it won't be repeated. When are we going to get our streets done? When are we going to have from Laurel all the way to James? Because those streets are really messed up with potholes. Every time I see the public works around there, they fill it in and they fill it in. When Connie was in office, she took a walk out there and said it was going to be done. Kathy, the same thing. I sat down with Tom and he looked at me like, well, we're going to get to it. And every year it's the same thing. We're going to get to it. Other streets are worse. Other streets. I'm hearing the same song. But with the new neighbors that now I've introduced myself, we got to come together and make some noise for us just to get something done on our curves, our sidewalks. I asked Brian from Public Works, do you have a 50-50 program where some of us are willing to pay 50-50 to get our sidewalks done? They got to be triggered hazard. So I'm asking you on a curve, come and just take a walk over there, look and see the curves and the street, big potholes. So I'm asking for some help. Mr. Schultz, Mr. Starkey, Mr. Brooks, I had your signs in front of my house and I said I will campaign on you made a difference for the people in our area. By Cherry Hill, the same thing. And nothing's getting done.
Well, that's not true.
Well, show me on my street that
Are you done? I don't want to cut you off.
Well, then that's what you're doing.
Okay,
I'm just saying that the streets are bad.
I'm going to give you an answer. Well, I'll let you finish. Are you finished?
Go ahead.
All right. As the council is well aware, the Osage project has been bid and has been let. It's been awarded. Neil referenced the community crossing grant earlier in his report. That is the Osage, Laurel, all that project. So Mr. Lowry, you and I talked about 30 days after I got here, and I told you at that time that that was a project in line. That project is running, Neil, 2.6, some number like that?
I believe that's correct.
So you're going to get your work started this fall. As soon as we have the projects, and we got the grant from the state. The local matches are all available. It involves about almost 800,000 in water main improvements and significant amounts of money in storm and everything else. So it'll be started. Neil, why don't you explain the construction sequencing for our employees?
Yeah, it will be anticipated to be started this fall, and the construction schedule will be done at the end of 2021. And that's through the 18-month process that we do with the ADOT bidding process. So as Tom had said, it's been designed, it's been to the stormwater board, it's been to the utility board, it's been bid, it's been awarded, and we're just waiting for our ADOT funds to come through.
Is that what you wanted to hear?
I appreciate it. I'm sure things are being taken down as notes that would be accepted and recorded. And my neighbor next door, he came in because he said the same thing that hey, when is it going to be done? He's been there almost 2 years, 3 years. So I appreciate it. Something at least to get the ball rolling, show the new resident that hey, we're trying to work as a team here.
Right.
The other thing is that we got a lot of the residents that are from Illinois,
Yes.
from Illinois, and they still got the license plates Illinois, and it's been a year, and it seems like we're not cracking down on, hey, we can use that kind of fund to help us when
Sure.
there's a shortage otherwise. And the other thing is that I applaud the police department. I see them go up and down more often on Osage and everything. Every time I see them, I give them a thumbs up or I beat the horn. I appreciate that.
I would say plan a party for when it's all done. Good? Okay, thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Any other citizens? Motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We will continue on with the redevelopment meeting. We have the minutes of July the 9th, 2020 redevelopment meeting. we have a motion to approve as far as the consent agenda? That's the only thing that's on it. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes from the July 9th, 2020 redevelopment meeting.
We have a second?
I'll second the motion.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Next, we have reports, the GPS emitters ordered for EVP.
Just as an FYI, if you know, we've been working on the emergency vehicle preemption system.
Right.
We had a grant that was able to partially fund some of the, what I call the loose equipment, the stuff that goes on the vehicles. We ended up having to order 25 or 30 units. Those have been ordered. They'll be in place. It's a TIF project. It ended up, initially, we were paying about 9 cents on the dollar for the whole project. Was our contribution was about 10%, 10%. This is paid at 100%, but we got the emitters at a significant discount over retail. So we got a good price. All of our vehicles by October 1st should be fully prepared. The GPS works different. The current emitters are an infrared, which is a line of sight. This is a GPS that picks up the signal and turns in advance. So imagine coming out of the EMS building or the new fire station, it's going to be a much better approach than coming straight on. So this is a state project, state and local project with Maryville was the lead agency. And I think there was maybe 10 communities involved in it. So it was a good project. So we're pleased with that.
It's a good project too, so thank you. An update on water sanitary project 213.
Well, Jeff, we're going to have to close 213th down for maybe up to 10 days. And we're working out the detours and stuff like that. They have to take the main out. The main has to go further out in the street than was anticipated for the sanitary line. So we're working on closures and stuff like that. What'll effectively happen is the Briar Ridge folks will only be able to use their north entrance, the Main Street. Well, that's not what I. That's different. Yeah, this is as of this morning. So we're going to get those details out, and they'll make arrangements for emergency vehicles to get in and out of there. And the 3 people or 4 houses will have a chance to go, but we're going to work on making sure the year end the towns get service.
I'd like to be able to drive and leave my house.
You'll be able to go east. The best I can do for you.
Take the long way and wait for the train. Right?
Yeah, that's it. So but it's moving along once they get that going. So is that about covers it, Jeff?
Do you have any idea how long it's going to take?
Week to 10 days.
Okay,
Wow.
that's not bad.
That includes the restoration of
Advance
the
notice,
page.
how much advance notice will we get?
We got the advance notice this morning. They want to close it on Monday. So tomorrow we're going to be busy.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Current 3-week schedule.
That's just in your packet is the 3-week schedule from the on the fire station. It's just an FYI.
Okay, they're really moving along quickly because I
You'll
go by there
start
all
seeing
the
some
time.
steel going up pretty soon.
Yeah.
Looks good.
Under old business, we have fire station number 2, approved change order number 2.
You see there's 3 items on the change
Right.
order. One's a credit, 2 are ads.
Total of $5,857. Do I have a motion for approval of the change order number 2 on fire station 2?
A motion to approve change order number 2, the net amount of $5,857.
Have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. Next, we have Central Park improvements.
That's just to keep you up in the loop as to what the park board's working on.
Okay.
The parking lot is the redevelopment commission's. The building is scheduled to come out of park bond funds. So that's how we're moving along on this. If things are moving along, we got a meeting, I believe, next week with Musco, the lighting people, to work on it, to get that piece going. So we're on schedule.
Good. Good news. Any other business? We have citizen input. Hearing none. Do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Moving on to the Town Council Work Study. We have 4 items on our agenda. They are the Safety Village, Chapter 3 revisions, Water District bond issue, and COVID update, if anything new. So first of all, we have the Safety Village. Representatives are invited to attend.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you, gentlemen. Good evening, council members. Bill Jarvis, Tri-Town Safety Village, 1350 Eagle Ridge Drive, Cherville, Indiana. I'm sure all of you know me. We're here for the continued support from Dyer. This Tri-Town Safety Village needs your help more than ever, because a lot of the big companies that I always apply grants from, they furloughed a lot of their people. So it's really been tough this year. Also, with donations, it's very slim pickings. A lot of companies are having hard times, as you know, with COVID-19. So we need the help more than ever to keep the Tri-Town Safety Village viable. In fact, one of the founding members is here in the audience, Debbie Astor, which has supported us for years and really has kept it going in the right direction. So we're just looking for Dyer's help.
Any comments?
No, I have to echo his sentiments. As I talked to Cherville and the town council members there, they informed me the same thing that you just said, and it's even higher importance now that all the towns contribute as much as we can and help support it. Even though the children may not be there this semester, but in the future they will, and we got to be well prepared to take care of them. This is about taking care of our future and our kids. So I just want to say I support Safety Village, and I think we ought to put in the same amount as Cherville, and St. John's put in the same amount too.
Correct. Cherville, St. John. In fact, we've already received their checks. They were on the agenda so about a month or 2 ago.
Could I ask how much, please?
$27,500.
Okay, thank you.
Which is less than our total budget. I've always tried to make it up with funding from other areas. And just to make one thing clear, and I hope everybody understands this, this does not fund the children to go to the Safety Village. This funds the Safety Village to be viable. Not the them, but the NIPSCO, water, maintain the place and keep it pristine. And we have other areas there too as well, which are not dependent on the Safety Village. We have the Fire Museum, we have the Veterans Museum. So it's really become a great place for the community, and the community loves it because a lot of elderly come walking through every day and enjoy the place. We open it up every day for people to view it, enjoy it, and keep COVID-19 at bay by all the rules and regulations, state of Indiana and CDC.
Eric, any comments?
I agree with Councilman Kramer. I think that the Tri-Town Safety Village is an important part of our community, especially one of the things that helps hold our 3 communities together. Spoke with Council President Tom Schmidt the other day about the importance of this. I'm fully behind the Tri-Town Safety Village. I think that we do need to continue to fund it at the same level as St. John and Cherville. My only ask would be to make sure that we also try to encourage those towns, all 3 towns, to also share in the responsibilities with the amount of manpower that we donate to help with the Safety Village, our police, our public works, things like that.
But just to clear up that a little bit, for answers to that, what I do is kind of a rotation to keep it equal amongst all 3 towns. Jeff has been admirable in helping us, as well as Jeff Hewitt from the town of Cherville and Bob from St. John. We were doing a thing with bingo to help support the Safety Village. The towns were helping us there, and it was on a rotation basis of every month. So no town, we try to keep it so no town does more than their fair share.
Helen?
I appreciate the safety village my children went through there. However, my concern is, Dyer, we're half the size of Cherville. We don't have the tax base that Cherville does. We're even smaller now than St. John. So I'm just concerned about the 25,000, 27,000. Yeah, I just think that's a little steep for this year. Financially, we're also trying to weather the COVID storm. We're doing okay so far, but we don't know where we're going to be at the end of the year. So I would say we act cautiously with the money.
Do we have, I've been looking through this, do we have any type of have we received the budget for the, do you have a written budget that we've received?
Yes, I did. I actually supplied it. I do have a copy of it with me as well. Actually, the budget is the same as it was last year. I did not do any increases. In fact, I cut back some items just to help because I knew this was coming. But the COVID, it makes it tough on everybody, businesses, individuals, even non-for-profits like us. So it's a tough year. But it's my job to make up that shortfall.
I guess I have two questions. I know in the past that we have not, because of our tax base being smaller than the other two towns, but one of the other things is that we donate the fire, police, public works, donate all kinds of help out there. And yet the other two towns, it's my understanding that those policemen get paid out of your budget, but ours doesn't?
That is not true.
Oh, okay. Can you please?
All the policemen that come from the towns, when they're on the payroll of the towns, do not get paid. For example, last year, what we primarily depended on was Sam, which was the code enforcement for the town of Cherville, the VIBS officers from the town of Cherville. We did have the police from Dyer, Jim Bazant and Kissinger, during the time that we had Dyer schools there. Because I'm a firm believer that what we want to do is have the police officers with regalia of that town when those children from that town
and they know those kids
are in attendance.
Yeah.
And absolutely they know those kids, but it makes it so you have officer friendly going on. Troy Grady knows what we do out there. I think Suzanne is in the audience. So no one police department is being hindered for participation in the police departments. Now, there has been a couple cases last year when the 11th hour, the police officer said they had to go out to an emergency. Then I start scrambling, looking for an instructor. And I've called Officer Bazant before and Kissinger to fill in, as well as Cherville officers and St. John.
Okay, the second thing is, what steps have you taken for your budget to combat the COVID problem? I mean, what have you done to adjust your budget?
Cut staff. We furloughed 2 people. We cut expenses like NIPSCO, turning the thermostats down, turning the lights off. We only have the air conditioning running when we absolutely need it. But during night, if you went over there right now, it's turned off. So we do everything in our power. And NIPSCO is one of our premier funders of the Tri-Town Safety Building. They have a safety building there where we teach children gas and electric safety in the home. That's brand new as of a couple of years ago. So they're one of our funders. So yeah, we've cut the budget. And
okay.
That's all we can do. I mean, we're scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point.
Right. But again, our tax base isn't nearly as lush as the other two towns.
That's your decision.
That's right.
For
Just making sure. Any other questions? Who represents Dyer?
As the
On your board, I know Jim does, Jim
We have
Bazant.
Jim Bazant. Well, it's always made up of the same 3 people. The town council president or a representative, the police chief or a representative, the fire chief or a representative.
Right.
Then 3 citizen members.
Who are the 3 citizen members for Dyer?
Debbie Astor is one of them.
Okay.
Janice Malco is the second one. And then, I'm sorry, Ashley Manfrey. What's it? Yeah.
She's a citizen?
Right.
Okay, they're all citizens of Dyer.
I don't know if you would consider Ashley a citizen of Dyer, but she's been very involved with her family in the town of Dyer for years.
Okay. Where does she live?
Cedar Lake, I think now.
Oh,
She
really?
just recently moved.
Oh, okay.
Who appoints those members?
Usually the board members appoint those.
The executive board, Bill, I think that they're asking, or the full board.
The whole board votes them in, but the executive board picks them.
Well, I think that's one thing that should be straightened out. I would like to see our citizen members actually be citizens of the town.
That can be done. You just have to get the directive back to our president, which is on your plan commission, that's William Howe.
Sure. Yeah.
Any other discussion?
No,
Bottom line, if I can say one more thing, it's all about the children. We have been prevented from having schools this first semester. I've had conversation with Dr. Baracco and Teresa Schoon, who is the elementary superintendent. And the first field trip for Lake Central will be the Tri-Town Safety Village. I've been assured of that.
Good.
They feel it's that important.
Good. I mean, it's a great experience for the children and hopefully pays off in saving lives.
Yeah, I have 20-year-olds come up to me and say, yeah, I was there.
That's good. Any more comments?
one last question. You had said, and you'll have to forgive me, I don't have the budget in front of me. Do you know off the top of your head what your cash on hand and what your debts are?
The cash on hand right now is $53,000, not including the 2 checks that we just received
From the 2 other
Sheriff
towns?
on St. John.
And does the Tri-Town Safety, do you have any outstanding debts?
Not other than normal maintenance items like NITSCO and all that, because the mortgage on the Tri-Town Safety Village is held by the town of Cherville, Massachusetts.
I'm good. I have no further questions.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that concludes that part of it. We've had a good discussion. You're welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome. I'll try and keep up the good work.
Next, we have Chapter 3 revisions and ordinance amending certain sections of the Town Code, Section 3 pertaining to the town legislative and judicial branches.
I presented this to you, and I think it's really a question that you have questions about the proposed changes or suggested revisions of those changes.
No, the only 2 things that I wanted to point out was 310-A, and that called back to the scheduling of meetings.
Yes.
Published prior to January the 1st of each year. My only thought with that is, as new councils come in on January, we'll still have the ability to change that should.
Absolutely. You could publish it. You could publish it in December for the next year, and come in January, we have another pandemic, and all of a sudden you say, "Wait a minute here, we've got to change this schedule." So all we have to do then is publish that new schedule at a public meeting and notify, obviously, the
We
president.
change meetings all the time.
All the time.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as we give that 48 hours.
And sometimes you have to be flexible depending on the
And
circumstances.
that was the intent behind this, because it doesn't always work to have those meetings, the second Wednesday or second Thursday, fourth
Mhm.
Thursday. And
Right.
in a given month, let's say November or December with the holidays,
Correct.
you're
Right.
going to juggle those around. And rather than doing it at the 11th hour, which can be done, publish the schedule early on, everybody can plan, accordingly for the year.
Right.
I think the one thing that
board, we do this every year.
the one thing I do really appreciate is a consent agenda, because we don't have to go through everything and read all the minutes and whatever. That really does help move the meetings along so that the citizens have more of a time to
And if you
speak.
notice one thing insofar as the order of business, we moved citizen input up to the very beginning.
Good.
And I think the reason for that is that so we can hear their comments.
They don't have to
questions.
sit through a whole meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's good. That's good. So if we have any questions, we should contact one of you.
I like
Put it on your
it.
next agenda.
Okay.
We put it on the
It looks
next
good. I appreciate the work you put into that.
Yeah.
I think 310C clarifies a lot of things also. So I think that works.
All right. Well, then we can put it on the agenda.
Yes,
Next
please.
regular meeting for adoption.
Water district bond issue.
Well,
This is going to be interesting.
we're,
Priorities move up real quick.
yeah.
Yeah.
I wish I had more answers for you, but it's moving. So this is a moving target. As you're all aware, we're in a crisis mode, quite frankly, on the Main Street, Maine. And it's changed everything from whenever we had discussion about the bond issue back in June or whenever that was, we went back as the utility board and worked within the parameter of the $280,000 retirement. And we had a schedule of what we could come up with bond values to be able to sell. That was before Main Street started giving us weekly breaks and moving to the top of the list. When I put this together very quickly, we're really not done with it yet, but we need to understand that we have some more technical work to do to make a determination. There's some discussion even after our board meeting that we need to consider the 12,000 foot replacement rather than a 4,300 foot replacement of that main. That's the distance between the valves in Cherville Highland line and our tanks. Nowhere are we talking about the storage system. This is all underground stuff. But you're now looking at, if we have to, at $300 a foot estimated cost at 12,000 feet, you're looking at $3.6 million for just that water main. Okay, that's more than what the tank was going to cost. It's more than what we were looking at before. We're still looking at, the connection, the emergency provision for the connection to Munster, the emergency interconnect at Cherville, and a bunch of other projects. We think it's very important that we have a redundant line coming south out of the pump station so that you've got two lines coming south in case we have a problem. Right now, our system depends on, it has, they talk about heart attacks, the Widowmaker. We have two Widowmakers. We have one coming in and one going out. We have no other redundancy or duplication in our system. So when there's a problem on either one of those lines, the system is in peril. There's no good way to say that. When we had breaks back in, Jeff, remind me, was it October, last fall or something like that? Last August, thank you. High consumption period. We were down to 10 feet out of the 30 feet in the tank, and even lower than that, quite frankly. And that was the main that was going underneath the creek. And the problem was trying to find it. Now, we were able to address that and deal with that, but that shows you how fragile the system is. The breaks that we had, the last couple of breaks that we had on the supply line, on the supply line coming in from Highland, the benefit we had was, as we were talking earlier about somebody who was claiming they got sick from drinking the water after we put the precautionary boiler on. That's not going to happen because there's 3 million gallons of water between them and the break and all that stuff. So that really isn't an issue. But again, with one in and one out, that's not the way you want to be. And I think now The emergency line coming out of Munster, we have a value for it. It would come down. The question is, how far north do we go? That's why I make mention up there. We're working on that. We guesstimated up to Treadway, which is the entrance going into cobblestones up there. So that gives you a reference point. It's a 16, it stops, and we think from there it goes down based on their atlas, it goes to 12s. So we'd want to tie to the 16. That would take it all the way down to Main Street, cross Main Street, take it down, probably on the west side of the street. We're still working on those things. Probably go into the park and then go across. Okay. And then we would have that feed. So we'd have two sources. We wouldn't buy water from Munster on a regular basis because that's a whole different contract situation that may change in the future, but just as the emergency and periodically use it to fill the tank. Then we would build a main coming out of the pump station down to 213th Street that would parallel the existing main going out. And you could have those two, and those could function then, both as a redundant feed. You wouldn't keep one unused. In that list of projects that we have about 1,100 fire hydrants, Jeff, good or bad? All right. And during our testing, we have several hundreds of them that need to be repaired or replaced. Those are system-wide improvements. Now, we've got a program when we do a street and we're doing some water, we change those height, but that's 4 or 5 at a time. That's not getting you anywhere in 700. So that's why that placeholder's in there for that. After our utility board meeting, several of us sat around and we're talking about pros and cons of different pipes and everything else. And we got into the situation of this is getting to be a bigger problem because it's a completely different set of priorities or circumstances that we talked about back in June. When you gave us the message, do a bond issue, but figure it out, that had one set of things, but now all bets are off the table. So quite frankly, I can't sit here and tell you that we can float a bond issue for $280,000 a year. I don't want a 30-year bond issue. If you bought a house, it takes you a long time to get anything out of it. It's a lot of interest you're paying on that money. And so I've got John Julian working out some other scenarios that you can react to. Understand that the current bond issue, which will be paid off this year, and that gets to a timing issue that Bill and I will talk to you about. The tax rate is less than 3 cents. I want to say like 2.89 or 2.79, but it's less than 3 cents on your total bill. Okay, and that has a value. That's based on a 10-year issue. And the whole concept was to take that 3 cents and just continue it on. Well, given the circumstances we got now, it's going to have to be more than 3 cents. And that's where I think you got to put yourself into that position. The second thing is when you deal with the utility rates and the rate studies that we're doing for storm, sanitary, and that, all those have an improvement component. And that improvement component is basically localized stuff that we're doing. The Osage project that Mr. Lauer talked about, that's coming out of an annual improvement fund. The Fillmore thing that we're doing up at the North Gate, that was last year's improvement fund. So in the space of a 12-month time period, we spent $1.5 million on 2 local projects. Okay, the improvement fund's not generating that kind of money. So we're putting placeholders in and building the rate from there and then having those projects, because these projects are multi-generational and they're system-wide improvements. They're not what I would call local system improvements and stuff like that. You've got to have both. And you don't want to be paying 10, 15 years. I really don't want to go out for a bond issue that's more than 15 years, and that's even too long. If we can get it 10, 12, and 15 if we need to make you comfortable with what your rate increase is going to be, I think that's what you got to focus in. But you need to be able to react to that, because good, bad, or otherwise, you're going to have other system improvement needs on the water system, and possibly even including a storage tank down the road, but you got to be ready for that. And you may have some other issues you need to deal with. But the hope was, the last bond issue we had in the water district that we're paying off was primarily for meters and some other small things. Again, a system-wide improvement. Your meters are going to wear out at some point in time. They have a certain life expectancy. Now we're looking at a ductile iron pipe that's 18 inches coming from east of Cypress, right there by the Cherville line that goes all the way down to Calumet and goes south into the storage tank. It goes into the storage tank at system pressure and then has to be repumped out. You can't pump it into that tank. So we're now having discussions. Some of us are talking about we need to explore a complete replacement of that line, because the problem we're having is the acidic soils. And those soils causing that corrosion problem. What happened on the two big breaks, the third and was it the 10th, Jeff? Those back-to-back breaks we had? The bell joint, the bottom of the bell joint blew out. And that's a condition of soil, bedding, and other kinds of problems. So we're looking at we've got some issues we have to deal with, and I'm telling you, it's got to be done. It's got to be dealt with quickly. We've got a strategy that when we talk about getting this bond issue, we talk to bond counsel. We need to start moving on this and the GO bond so we don't run out of time this year. But given the imperative nature of the water main break, we have an ability we could fund the replacement of the water main ahead of closing on the bond issue. You do a declaratory resolution that the bond issue pays back that fund. Now, we've got good funds in TIF that we're using on projects down the road. So we're healthy there in cash. So we could start that project as soon as we get it designed and everything going and get that going as a high priority. And then the Munster job and some of the other stuff can just follow into place, and those would be likely 21 projects anyway. So I think I'm comfortable dealing with all that, but I've got to get you so you can make a good decision. And the utility board is, what's it going to cost? We've got ideas, but how are we going to pay for it? We know it's going to be $300 a foot because that's an estimate that Neil and his folks have used for all the infrastructure. We've got different numbers for everything. 12,000 feet, $300 a foot, 3.6. 1.6 for the Munster job. Keep adding them up, and you know where we're going. We're heading at $5-6 million, which is not what we thought we were going to have before. But that's kind of where we're at. I'm hoping this is the number one priority I'm working on right now. That we'll be back to you in the utility board in a couple of weeks with some answers to say we can head here. The biggest question is how much of that main do we replace? And Frank and I were talking about that a little bit. We've got to, I think, get back with the engineers and kind of come up with stuff. We're going to take some soil borings, but as somebody made the comment at the meeting, no matter where you stop, your soils aren't going to. There's no reason to believe that they're going to get any better. There's not like it's a change and stuff like that. Your change is more north to south as opposed to an east to west kind of a thing when you have bad soils going through stuff. So that's what we're kind of looking at. We're going to start doing some borings, and we may very well expand that. But this is really to raise the red flag to tell you that we got a problem. Most of you are aware of it. And, that's kind of where we're at. I'll try to answer any questions. Frank's, of course, chairman of the utility board, and we've been working on this. So
is the cost per foot the same for plastic over ductile?
We're going to bid it as an alternate to see, because you end up buying a bigger plastic pipe, PVC pipe, and there's some pros and cons. Most of our main now is wrapped in plastic because of the acidic, the corrosiveness in the soils. That's why we have, when I first got here and these guys were telling me all these water main projects that we're doing, I'm thinking, I'm a little premature for some stuff. Well, I took it back to being the old well water eaten from the inside, which is not uncommon. And then they explained to me it's causing the problem from the outside. So they've been wrapping plastic for, I don't know how long, Jeff, quite a while. But we've got some things that we're going to look at changing to see what can happen and stuff like that. So it's a problem. Nisa's working with us on it, and we'll kind of go from there. So we'll keep you in the loop. This all started from Monday night, so it's pretty fresh.
And I think the utility board did a great job of explaining everything piece by piece and how it all happened and how we can remedy it. So I really appreciated the utility board and their input. And I know there were quite a few of us there. And sometimes we just have to ask for explanations of things because sometimes it's kind of difficult if you're not one of those engineers and know what's going on, but they were very helpful. So
And unfortunately, sometimes you got to bite the bullet.
Yes, yes,
I know
yes.
none of us want to
But if-
raise, none of us want to raise rates
Right.
other than what they need to be.
But if you explain why
Yeah,
to the residents especially, they really
Well, I mean,
appreciate that.
if you replace all the main that goes down Main Street, but you got 5,000 of bad pipe in front of it.
well, that's what we
Yeah.
don't know. That you're exactly right, Alan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And do remember, this is a tax supported fund.
yeah.
It's not a
Right.
a rate supported fund.
Yeah.
And I think right now, the tax rate is what, 3 cents?
Less than 3 cents.
3 cents per hundred.
Now,
And I mean, that'll be a pretty decent hit because we were looking at 5.5 million over 30 years to
Yeah.
get that 282,
Yeah,
200,
yeah.
whatever that was.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And now, I mean, the quick math is 7.2, another 800,000 if you want to throw the hydrants on.
Yeah.
We're looking at 8 million and we want to stick to a 10, you
Yeah.
know, so we've doubled the amount we're going to take, shortened it by 2/3.
And
But
another,
again, I mean, you can't go 30 years on this type of stuff.
No.
Because in 6 weeks, we just added
yeah,
$2.5
we
million.
just doubled the project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
No, Mr. Starkey's right. And I think the other side, there's two things. One of the strategies that we may present to you, and if you buy into it, is the concept, the same thing we've done with the parks and the GO stuff. Shorten those issues up. We can't go to 2 years on this thing, but shorten those issues up and ladder them as you go along. Once we lay all these projects out and figure out everything, we can plan them. If I don't need $1 million for 3 years, why would I want to borrow it today if you're willing to go along and know that in 3 years you got another water district bond issue? You do it. And I think people like Standard & Poor's like that because it shows some planning and everything else. I don't like bond issue money sitting there. It's supposed to get in and get it spent, and in 3 years you should have exhausted it. You should do your plans. But by the same token, there's a cost for issuing bond issues, but we keep moving them along. So we may end up with some kind of a hybrid, and that's kind of the strategy we're working on.
I think our intention is to give you a number of scenarios with it so you can evaluate them and pick them apart.
Yeah.
And decide what's there.
But if I leave you with no message, no other thought rather, is between the three utilities, they're all facing the crossroads at major projects. We put off all the cheap projects. This one kind of sprung on us, but sanitary's been looking at big projects at the plant and out in the collection system for years. They're coming down the pike. Storm, you know what storm costs. It's 14 million just to take care of a subdivision, you know, and we're working on those things. You can't get it. So they have to have improvement money, particularly when I talk about storm. The beauty of the storm stuff, we throw in the storm work with the CCMG things. Doesn't pay for the big pipe, but it pays for everything that connects to it. So we've been real good about that. So we get that subsidized at 50%. So when we throw in like the Osage job, storm sewer is a big stuff, the Northgate stuff, and all these other kinds of things, we've got them down to the boards are working together and we combine those things. So sanitary and water aren't eligible for CCMG, so they got to pay their full boat. Water's been getting off dirt cheap up until Osage and Fillmore, and now they're big six-figure numbers. So sanitary was kind of the same way, except we got hit another big job on Osage, you're going to get hit. So they're facing up to those higher things. So we've got to make sure we've got in the rate structure money to take care of those things. And Storm may have to figure out what they're going to do. They've done revenue bonds, and we'll have to talk about that stuff. So we got a lot of work ahead of us in the next couple of months.
Any questions?
So what's the next step? Are we going to hear from Baker Tilly, or do we need to get our projects organized first?
Now, Baker Tilly, we're working on, Baker Tilly's going to give us a couple of bond scenarios. Because you know, the projects are there. Is this going to be, do we borrow 10 million? Do we borrow 8? Do we borrow 6? What do we borrow? And how often do we borrow it? We got the priority list of projects.
I think it's a matter of financial side, how much it is.
Yeah.
How much we're willing to buy.
It's going to be a lot of moving pieces all at one time. Baker Tilly's got that assignment to do. I hope to have some stuff next week to give us some numbers to look at. We're beginning to look at the rough drafts of, we still have to get them some information they're looking for on all the rates, plug in a placeholder for that kind of stuff. I've got from Storm the list of their biggest projects. Sanitary, we know what our bigger projects are. We're doing some studies on some other stuff. So we know those things. Those answers can fall into place, and using the placeholders help that. So our next thing is we have to make a decision on 12,000 feet of main, 4,000 feet of main, or something like that. And I think once we have a discussion with the engineers and you guys now understanding what we're doing, I think the answer is going to fall to 12,000 to be on the smart side, is my notion. But
I know at one point before we had these issues on Main Street, the priority was getting that water main out from under the creek. Can we still move forward on that? And
well,
at least get that
the
second
water under the creek is a minor project. It's encapsulated. It's in a pipe, so you can't take it out. You don't need to take it out. By doing what we're doing, having a second line and everything else, I think we can address that. That was certainly not my highest priority. It needs to be done, but it's already in a pipe like we do all the other, we got them on Main Street and everywhere else, so.
And a redundant distribution.
Yeah,
main.
but that's a small project compared to what we're talking about.
And that redundant distribution main will not be under the creek.
Yeah.
be attached to
Yeah,
the bridge.
but
Yeah, that'll be under the ground and attached to the bridge. You won't have to cross underneath.
What about the Cherville line? Is that something that we can move forward now without bonding?
Not right now, but it's a small enough project that once we get these other projects out of the way, I mean, it's an estimate of $300,000, but it doesn't solve your problem. It's a Band-Aid.
Right.
It's a Band-Aid, and I want you to understand that. I think you got to address the ones where we got to put the tourniquet on. Yeah.
Right.
But that's $2 million right there.
I think it was January 2019, Mr. Kramer, when you and Eric got on, and there was a discussion about I think the trash fee was going to go up like 35 cents, and you had made a point. You said, is there any way that the town can absorb that somehow? And I like that train of thought of, how can we help insulate the residents? And I think the five of us need to decide, how our messaging is going to be on this. This is going to be, it needs to be done. You need water. This is going to be a major impact to your property taxes when your taxes come, but it's also going to be a major rate monthly. It's going to be a major change on that too, as we look at these things. They have to be done, but we need to figure out how we're going to do that, and whether that's, where can we make inroads to tell the residents, we can't constantly keep going to them and say, you're our blank checkbook. But I mean, we need to. I'm just saying. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just saying, as a philosophy, we need to come up with something to say.
I think we do a much better job than what's used to be done. I mean, right now, residents say, well, why did this go up? Well, then all of us are well informed that we can explain to them, you guys like to have these improvements. This is how we're doing it. And once you explain, it's just like your street, Bob. I mean, people are upset about having their street torn up. Well, if you tell them it's costing $2.6 million, but this is the result of it. And if you explain why, then we're better off. I mean, right now we have social media, we have the newsletter, we have all different outlets, and people call, they get an answer.
In December of
Good
16,
job.
December of 16, we had a public hearing on 3 rate increases. And almost nobody said, I don't like this rate increase. But what they said, what the clear message from a lot of people was, we know it's going to go up. Do it more frequently. Don't wait 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years. And that's kind of what we did. We waited a couple of years and you looked at the rates and we got them going. But they also wanted to know what you were getting for it.
Yes.
And the way we sold it was to have maps showing where projects going to be, pictures of what the projects were and stuff like that. Yeah, your rate increase is going up, but we're doing this here and this here and that here. And the problem is those things never stop. You know, there's always, the list never gets to the end. You know, we were joking, we talked last year about, we were so happy we got rid of all the #1 priorities for the street, for the sidewalks. Well, this year there's a whole new list of now #1s, you know, and that's how it works. On the sanitary side, we're getting rid of all the #5s, which are the bad ones on the open cuts and everything else. But next year, or maybe the year after, the 4s will move up to 5s. The good news is we got rid of the big problems, and next year we'll have less. So we're reprogramming the money next year for the phosphorus problem that you're aware of that we talked about. So there's always, unfortunately, you know, it's like an old house.
Yep.
There's always something that needs to be done. And it's a living organism.
We know going into 2021 that we're going to have 3 utility rate increases.
Yep.
And a whopper of a bond. And we're just, I think we should put our mind to it now that it's some form of it's going to happen. Like you said, whether it's 6, 8, 10 million,
yeah,
some form is going to happen. We need to figure out and be ready with a message,
yeah,
ready with a sales pitch, because you know, Tom, you made a good point the other night at the utility board meeting. You know, had we went ahead with the storage tank, well, that now we price pump the brakes on that for a little bit, but at least that's something you can see.
Yeah.
You say, where do you spend the money? You can point to that.
You're gonna put $10 million in the ground, nobody's gonna see it.
And we already know that the wastewater treatment plant's gonna need several $1 million. You know, more things you can't just point to. So I think we need to keep in mind that we're gonna be asking an awful lot of the residents over the next couple of years. And I think it's a fantastic bipartisan thing here. If we're willing to fight for 35 cents a household every month, you know, we're going to be asking a lot more than 35 cents from these people. And I think we just need to be ready to.
And the gift is that we have so many people from Illinois that will gladly pay that because they would have paid a lot more in Illinois.
But that was just.
That's kind of what we're working at. We understand. I've been in this business long enough. Nobody likes raising anything, but by the same token, if your rates are not, for one thing, you're violating the law, and secondly, you're violating your fiduciary responsibility as a governing body. You've got to keep
they need water.
You got to keep those systems going.
I have one other question here, and I don't know if it, Bill, you can stop me if I shouldn't say this. Some of the conversations we've had in executive, does borrowing this money from TIF to do this work now, does that impact any of what we were talking about then? I didn't know if that would then push that off to.
No,
I think that's also something that we want to.
We're looking at pockets of money and what's available.
Okay.
The whole strategy.
Right. Okay.
The whole strategy to do this, I've done this before. It's in lieu of what's called bond anticipation notes, where I got a bond issue that I'm going to close out in December, but I go to a bank and I borrow some money now to do that, and then as soon as I get the bond, or tax anticipation warrants, then you pay it back. It's a financing strategy that's
it's an old one,
purely legit, and it's using unneeded money that's not getting used for something right now.
No, I just want to make sure that if October rolled around and what we had talked about was ready for a go, that now we got to wait till some other point. I just want to make sure we had that on hand.
The only condition of doing this is that this water line that we're talking about has to service a TIF district and cross it.
And it does.
It does.
Yeah.
That's the only requirement.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and I do appreciate Frank and Tom. We were the ones who spoke afterwards. You know, you can wrap the ductile iron now, and that you know, that's going to have a fairly long-lasting impact. But ductile iron should be in the ground for 110 years, useful service life, 50 to 60 years. We're looking at 30, so we're less than 20. Right. So you look at the root cause of the problem, and it's how the bad soil impacts the material that we're putting in the ground. And so if you want to eliminate a root cause, you put a different material in the ground. And that's why I said I would appreciate an alternate bid, you know, an alternate spec on switching to either high density PE or PVC, because that eliminates the problem. That just eliminates the problem. So that was my
Because
thought with it.
the oldest section of that line is about 30 years. The newest section is probably like 28 to 30 years.
Yeah.
We should have at least gotten the city out of it.
So that was some of the
Well-
backstory as to why we all of our dire standards say ductile iron. That was the reason to, at least start looking at the plastic, because plastic has its own issues, yes, but it certainly corroding in 30 years is not one of them. And
That's right.
When this was put in, that was the acceptable standard.
Right.
Right.
Because somebody said at that meeting, they didn't start wrapping the ductile pipe till like 1995.
yeah, a couple of years after we put ours in.
Yeah.
So again, if we spent all that money 30 years ago and went to the residents 30 years ago and said, we need a bunch of money from you guys for a project that I guarantee when we did that, they said this project will last 100 years.
Well, since none of us will be here in 100 years, they'll be able, somebody else will be able,
but some
those
of
idiots in
Some of us
2020.
still in the same house after 30 years. It would be nice if, now we can say, in doing this, we couldn't honestly go to them and say, we're putting in this ductile iron, it's going to last 100 years.
And we've saved you so much money.
So, yeah, that would.
Any other comments?
That was the push behind the plastic.
Any other comments? Anything updating COVID?
We've got a new,
We have a new executive order.
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're all
Yep.
aware of that.
just
Yep.
pushed us back.
That's really.
I think the key is, we're trying to enforce the face mask policy internally and with employees and stuff like that. How do you want? I'm at the right way. What do you want us to do in terms of, you can, under the current executive order, issue more restrictive than a recommendation per se. You could do that if you want. Several communities, if you look at the lakeshore communities, they've closed their beaches, which is more than what because the governor doesn't deal with too many
Right.
beaches.
No.
But Michigan City, Gary, Whiting,
But Whiting shut theirs down.
and so is
Yeah.
Michigan City and those kinds of places.
I mean, I think the National Retail Organization issued their letter and their businesses are following that. I think we started something here on Monday night, which I thought was good. I've seen that kind of ebb and flow is more or less when we're in here using this is using the restaurant rules. Once you
Either
get to your
6 feet
table,
or-
if I can sit this close to Alan in a restaurant and be okay, so I don't know if that's
You
what
need
you're.
to sit closer to the rest.
I don't know if I want to sit that close, unless he's paying. But yeah, I don't know that we need to. I mean, that's my thought.
I think we're fine. Any comments?
I mean, I'd like to see us codify the executive order if that's possible to give some sort of an ability if someone is struggling, if we're holding an event at a park where the
That's a good
Parks
point.
Department is holding an event and people are just flipping the bird to the Parks Department employees and saying, you can't tell me what to do. That's a problem. And now our police department has there's nothing that they could do either unless we codify it.
We talked about this after the last market. It was, not
I
good
noticed that too.
and not good, but it gets into we need some backing as to what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I think you can post signs without you doing anything that says masks are mandatory. You cannot.
They have, but people walked right past them and said, I'm not doing it.
They should be asked to do.
Yeah, they did not only just walk past, they belittled our park employees, swore at them, yelled at them, all sorts of terrible things, and they shouldn't have to put up, no one should have to put up with that.
That comes close to destroying my conduct. Right there.
Well,
We at least make contact and identify those that are causing ruckus.
I don't remember, the first event you had, they had an officer right up front. This last one, I didn't see the officer up front.
Yeah.
Was there?
Part of the problem with the market is it's not enclosed. You can't corral people to go through a thing where you'd have a lot of better control of doing stuff.
But I go to St. John Market on Sundays and there are still a handful of people that don't wear a mask.
Yeah, well,
So that's your choice.
when we go backwards from 4.5, then we'll see what's going
Yeah.
on.
You're right.
We're
You're right.
starting to be we're on the uptick area.
Yeah, I heard today that the lieutenant governor is telling people that they expect to be on 4.5 through the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Could be.
And that's assuming we don't go back.
I still don't know what's going to happen with school.
I don't see how they can move to 5. You pigeonholed yourself into 4.5. As soon as you move to 5 and one person gets sick, the whole thing tanks, you know? I think we're on 4.
I'm worried about going back to 4 or worse.
Any other
I
business?
guess, I mean, my question is, so is there anything that a police officer could do at one of our events if people are flat out ignoring or
We
refusing?
can ask them, you know, cooperate.
That's what they do in St. John.
Identify a person, but if they're not doing anything illegal, sometimes they refuse to identify. So, it's quite cumbersome. It's very challenging.
Yes.
Not only for the administration, but the officers. So, but,
It's different from a building like this because we could station somebody upstairs
Sure.
and ask for a required, no, you're not coming in without a mask. Period. You can borrow them from the building. The market is a lot different.
Yeah.
So
It's frustrating.
Anything else?
Yeah, 2
Steve?
quick issues that I thought we agreed to keep on the work study session agendas, which is the bike trail from the railroad. I talked a little bit and reminded our manager that the last discussion I had, last words out of their mouth was make us an offer. So I'm not sure what they're looking for now, because originally discussion was to convert that rail to trail property. I think I've got one more reach out to the new CEO, and I've already asked Tom to help me draft a letter, and we're going to reach out before we decide what we have to do, which the next step would be basically get appraisals for the property. No matter which way we're going to go, we need
How much property are we looking at?
it's a narrow little strip from the edge of what we need to Cherville.
Anybody have a ballpark on that?
Yeah, I have no idea what that property will be. And then
What do you-
Bill
what do you think?
reminded myself, and he's got to check the agreement that they have with the oil pipeline to make sure the availability is there. But I believe when Neil, every time we talked to him, he said, sure, but we're not in charge of it. You know, the railroad still owns it.
Maybe you'd like to donate it.
That was my
He
first
tried.
thought. I tried, listen,
Would that be kind of you?
I
I
went
think
to
you ought to let
Washington
him name it, right?
DC and talked to them all,
Sure.
including the attorneys for the U.S.
It's a
government.
tax write-off.
So if you look at the CEO of Norfolk Southern, which they moved out of Virginia, now they're in Atlanta, I believe. He's got a big background on converting rail trail and helping communities. So maybe we can appeal to that. I say let's give it one last time. And if not, then we prepare for the appraisals and move it forward in the direction that we have to. The other issue real quick is Pheasant Hills Pond. Where are we with that?
I have, it fell down the list, but it's right in front of me.
I got it right on my list.
I got notes all over my report.
Thank you. I just want
Yeah,
to keep
no, I
it.
haven't forgotten,
reminder.
Steve, I haven't.
I know it's one
I'm
of
trying to put together what the storm board and your concepts were different. I'm trying to get them meshed, and it may end up being that, before I forget, I think I've told you guys, I think it's the 19th. We want as many of you there. We want a presentation on the regional pond. May benefit to have at least a 5-minute conversation on what their viewpoint is on Pheasant Hills, or at least a sidebar.
Yeah,
So we
the
can-
last time I talked, well, a couple of times with the Stormwater Board was they're only willing to do maybe a bubbler or something in the bottom.
Yeah.
I said, fine,
Well-
then maybe the town council can take on utilizing the bacteria for the muck. And it's just
You look at the reports from Burke and everything else, and it's, I don't
from
have it in front of me.
1995.
No, there's
I
been
think.
some more recent ones.
Yeah.
There's been recent ones. We've talked about this once or twice. But as Matt Shanks, you remember, worked for Army Corps and stuff, he basically said, you got to kill what's in there, and then you can start turning that thing around. So
That was a
it may
great
be-
explanation.
It may be the best thing that we do is bring somebody in and say, make this thing a living, something to do that, make that investment. And that's kind of what I'm struggling with. What basically they said was, put a proposal out and tell somebody, you guarantee us that you can clean this up and we'll buy your product, as opposed to just picking something off the shelf, because you're getting conflicting. So it's not as easy as saying, let's throw some stuff into it and stuff. That's kind of where I'm at. If we're going to have an approach that's making at least,
Worth your while.
yeah, worth our while, and we're not
Return
just
on investment.
throwing good money after bad. But I certainly haven't forgotten about it. It's sitting there.
Right, but the stormwater board wasn't interested in the fountains. They said it had some benefit for them. but it was minimal. We'll get-
The oxygenation was the issue.
Yeah.
It's purely aesthetics.
Exactly. That's what
They
we had
didn't do
said.
anything
You're
for
right.
the-
That is all.
It'll
for the light.
oxygenate, but only where the water falls
Yeah.
around the.
But you're talking about a bubbler or an oxygenation thing, that's what.
Well, that, and if you utilize bacteria in the different areas, it will digest the muck, but it's only good for, let's see, maybe
4
April,
months.
May, June, July, August, September, October, 7 months out of
Yeah.
the year. And then it'll sort of, I don't know if it dies, but you're right. We
Goes
should
back.
bring out a biologist or
Yeah,
something.
that's what I think you need.
Yeah,
You need to bring out,
I will reach out and call.
I got a company that I want to talk to them about and then converse with Thomas and those guys about doing it. They're into the wetlands and ponds and all that kind of stuff. It's not.
And I got a guy, I talked to him, they're based out of Michigan. He says he has a best friend in St. John's. He's down this way all the time. So maybe I'll tell him.
JF New, if you've heard the name, is
Hmm?
JF New is the original company. It's now Hard Nose something else, but Jim New used to be the state biologist, and he had an environmental company and did stuff, and they've been bought out by somebody else as Jim retired. But that's who I think you got to bring in, somebody like that, make an assessment and say, okay, this is what we can do. And this is what you can do for this much money or that much money. And just have somebody look at it rather than us guessing. So that's kind of where I'm heading in the whole thing. But I haven't had a chance to work on it with some of the other stuff going on. But I haven't forgotten it.
Anything else? Yes.
We wanted to get some resolution on this live streaming for work studies. Okay. I just need a yes or a no, because how you want to handle this. We got a work study. Now, we're certainly live stream whether a minutes or 2 minutes or 2 hours to regular meetings and stuff like that. But you want,
I don't, what is your feeling? Anybody?
Well, we're live streaming tonight, right?
Correct.
And we
Yeah.
did the other meeting?
yeah,
That is correct.
I didn't notice any difference either way. And if we're already doing it, I might as well just do it.
Yeah, I feel like that comes with the territory. You put your hand up, you ran for this position. You know that you could have 40 people here, you could have 10 people or 2 people watching at home. I think it's good, open, clear government that holds us accountable.
Transparent.
Bob?
I completely agree with that for all the meetings. I don't know for the study sessions. I mean, is there any value to having it being the people in the room having a conversation? I don't know if that was just.
Well, I think the value comes from as we get ideas, hopefully generated from a lot of residents and people in our neighborhoods, that they can see us discussing them, evaluating them, having our different departments look at them for us, so they know what's coming up in the future. And I've talked to Eric a little bit about it. The downside to me would be the residents asking, why aren't you doing it? What are you hiding? And I like to be open and transparent, as I know you guys do too. So just think about that. I know it sometimes, and we talked about it, I've even talked to Mary, that we need to have some private discussion. How we do that, under the law, it allows 2 of us to talk together at a time. And if it falls under the law of the executive meetings and the regulations, we can do it in there. But I'd rather err on the side of being open and transparent. That's my feeling.
Alan?
I feel, as far as the study session goes, that you're going to have probably more open conversation and right talk if it's not streamlined.
You could say the same thing if the public wasn't here too, but they by law are here.
I would say, I don't think it's really necessary to live stream the study sessions. I mean, it involves IT people.
The actual thought process, the decisions that are made that affect the residents of the town.
Yeah, I get that. And I guess what's the difference if you're a resident? What's the difference of sitting here or sitting at home?
That's where I'm at with it.
all right, I'll put it on the agenda. We can go up or down and go from there. Fair enough. Tomorrow is shut off day and shut off letters will be going out. So eviction notices.
Yes.
I can't evict you.
Nothing with shut offs or anything?
Thanks, everybody.
That's it.
Thank you. Good meeting. Thank you, Tom.
You guys have to sign this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, don't we have a?
They do.
Yes, you can.